What kind of superheroic action do you like to see? There's cosmic stuff, there's street level stuff, but beyond that, there's, the characters who use their brains, the characters who use brawn, who have amazing skills and techniques, who have amazing powers, or are just super smart, and they can do all sorts of different things. I really do think I prefer a blend of both, because I'm a little greedy, I guess you could say. This is MJ. I love comics, and right now I want to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 5, where he fights with none other than Dr. Doom. It was written by Stan Lee, the art was done by Steve Ditko, and S. Rosen did the lettering work this time around. Seems like they keep switching out letterers, which I find kind of interesting. The cover is cool. It is very much an encapsulation of all the different stuff that happens. The splash page, they kind of fake you out because they show, a fake Spider-Man or the other Spider-Man. And there are technically 2 men in Spider-Man costumes in this episode, or this issue, but it is by no means like another Spider-Man, which I find to be pretty funny. So while in the video version I'm still displaying the title and splash page, or the cover and splash page, I want to let you know that this was a really fantastic issue. It's a must-read. Like, even if you didn't listen to any of my other recommendations and read all the other Amazing Spider-Man comics thus far, and even like Amazing Fantasy 15, which I thought was really, really good, I would say you could just skip those and check this out, because it has a great balance of the drama in Peter's life, his life, his school, and then him as Spider-Man, even some to do with him, trying to work and earn money to help support him and Aunt May, and that's pretty interesting. There's like a funny little like plot hole or retcon type thing in here. It's less that they add something in to retroactively fix the continuity. It's more that they kind of ignore the continuity, which is pretty funny to me. I don't know who the editor was at this time, but they weren't keeping a too tight a ship on this, which is funny because at the very end of this issue, there's an announcement that because of the overwhelming support that Spider-Man has been getting, I guess they got a lot of letters and postcards and things like that, that they were going to go ahead and or move the title from being a every other month title, so 6 issues a year, to being a full-time 1 issue per month title, which is pretty cool. And I can kind of see why, and I don't know when that came in. I almost wonder if they had known that he was having overwhelming support, and or for a while, like before they made this issue up, and then they decided, hey, let's throw Dr. Doom in there, piggyback off the Fantastic Four, and try to really launch Spider-Man as legitimate. And we'll have a little note at the end saying, hey, you like this guy so much, this is an amazing issue you caught, well, good news, you can buy 12 of these a year instead of 6 of these a year and give us even more money. And like I said, they decided to spring back off of the big Dr. Doom special, because when I saw Dr. Doom as issue 5 of Spider-Man, I was shocked, because I mostly know Dr. Doom by reputation, being the Fantastic Four's arch rival, or whatever main bad guy they fight and stuff, and then a little bit of Dr. Doom from like the crossover back in the Secret Wars, the cartoon version of it with Spider-Man in his show. And then I used to watch the Fantastic Four cartoon as well, and I rarely remember seeing Dr. Doom, but who knows how many of the total run of that show I actually watched, so a little hard to say. But anyway, that was all basically just to kind of set up how shocking it was to me that they were having Spider-Man run up against Doom in his 6th issue, and that I do think it was perhaps a play to go towards something bigger, which was the launching of his full-time title airing, or being published every single month, which is a big deal. Alright, so that was all a very long setup. Now I'm going to start getting into the nitty-gritty. There were some key takeaways I had that I wanted to discuss. One of them is, the art is of course fantastic, but I really think Ditko's getting a feel and a groove, getting into a groove for like what the Spider-Man art should be. I really like one of the things he does, which is like use of deep shadows. there's this one panel where Peter's in the dark and he's using his spider sense to navigate around the basement because he pulled the plug on the power to get out of the house without Aunt May knowing, or like he had to make up a legitimate reason for it. So anyway, but like there's just blues and blacks and then a little bit of white for his spider sense and the, you know, the thought bubble and stuff coming off of him. But it's really a really nice look. It's a very iconic. I love that half the Spider-Man mask covering his face thing, which they do multiple, like I kind of think they do it like on average, you know, 1.5 times per issue so far, and or you know, 1 time per issue really, and it's good stuff. I like it, very effective. But when I asked the question at the top of this, whether you prefer heroes who use brains or bronze or whatever, I kind of gave you a false choice there, because I'm going to go the third way and say what I really prefer is heroes who are all heart. And I think that you know, Spider-Man definitely qualifies as that. And when I was bringing up the issues that Peter's having, you know, with his classmates and stuff, that are so, like, such a big deal in this issue, that are, you know, so much in the forefront. There's this whole thing where Doctor Doom actually, and this is, you know, the major spoilers throughout, but it's a really great issue. You should definitely check it out. Doctor Doom captures Flash Thompson because Flash Thompson, in an attempt to scare Peter Parker, who has decided to hide the fact that he's Spider-Man by being negative towards Spider-Man publicly. He gets a Spider-Man. He gets the girls at school to make a Spider-Man costume that looks like, you know, it's like 90% the same as Peter's, and then he dresses up in it, and he's going to jump out and scare Peter, and, you know, kind of rough him up for being, you know, mean to Spider-Man, because Flash Thompson is a huge Spider-Man fanboy. But Doctor Doom at the same time has built a device that will, like, hone in on the spider sense, I think is what it is, because he was able to communicate much like Chameleon was able to do. Doctor Doom was able to communicate with Spider-Man via the spider's instincts or spider sense, whatever, and apparently that has its own radio frequency, which these guys were able to determine and you know, tap into. So he uses it to track down Peter, and of course or Spider-Man, and because Flash is dressed up as Spider-Man and he's next to Peter because he wants to scare him, Peter sets it off, but then Flash is the one who's nabbed by Doom, and then Doom calls out the Fantastic Four because he has Spider-Man as bait now, and he wants to, you know, lure them out and kill them, of course, because there's enemies. And Peter gets a call from Liz Allen, I think, and part of him would be thrilled. And you even see this awful grin on his face at the prospect of letting Flash die. Of you know, whether the Fantastic Four rescue him or not, the, you know, odds of him, you know, getting killed by Doom are high enough, and Peter feels content with that for a few moments. He indulges some of the, you know, darker aspects of his personality, or of his heart, really, and he wants to let him be. And then this is actually one of the panels where Ditko does the Spider-Man mask on half of his face, and the, you know, Peter side has this, you know, kind of depraved grin on his face as he's imagining life without Flash Thompson, you know, mucking everything up for him. And then he actually, on the Spider-Man side, you know, his moral, you know, sense comes through, and he starts talking about how he has to, you know, even rescue a mug like Flash. And I really like that. I feel like, you know, again, I'm going back to, you know, it's really the heroes with heart that appeal to me most. And the thing about, you know, Peter Parker and Spider-Man is because he wants to keep his life as Spider-Man a secret, and, you know, protect, you know, Aunt May and whatever, both from the knowledge of who he is, and, you know, he's you know, taking pictures, and there's all these reasons for him to have a thick wall between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, which is, you know, why he's insulting him or coming out against Spider-Man as Peter Parker when he's around other people, because the guy is developing this other persona, and I feel like the Spider-Man is kind of the best part of Peter. He puts so much good into him. Like I said, he indulged, you know, this awful thought of letting Flash get killed, so that, you know, things would change, so his fortunes would change. But then, of course, you know, the part of him that's Spider-Man, which is a phrase that they've used in a previous issue, won't allow that. And Gosh, I think it's interesting that after being bitten by that spider, Peter Parker has become something else. He's become someone else. He's become Spider-Man, and how much that affects the way he lives his life. And it's interesting because thinking about this would be about, I don't know if you would call this 5 months in or 6 months in. I'd say probably closer to 5 months that the comic had been running. But I don't know what length of time is supposed to have elapsed in Peter Parker's life. Obviously, it's not, a full school year, and they didn't say it starts in September or anything like that. So I don't know. How close is he? Closer to 15 or 16 at this point? Is he closer to being what would that be, a sophomore or a junior? I'm not 100% sure, but it's interesting that the growth and the changes that we get to witness in Peter as he continues to be Spider-Man, and just how deeply that affects him in his personal life, even as he's trying to keep up this wall between these different aspects or dimensions of himself. And I don't know, I just really like the duality in like Batman or I don't know, most other superheroes has never really appealed to me. Like, I think it's neat that the Fantastic Four get to be public heroes, but I don't I don't have strong feelings either way about heroes keeping their identities secret or not. And I don't have I guess I haven't given it much thought, but in reading these issues, and I don't know if it's because I'm so much an adult or in a different stage of my life than before, through checking out things or enjoying other hero media, I don't know why it's never impacted me. The only time it's really ever felt strong was in Greg Taylor's Red Panda series. There's an episode called Duality, and there's a couple of other things, and it's pretty early on, like within the first 20 episodes, I think, where Red Panda and Flying Squirrel kind of wrestle with the fact that they have a duality, because one of their villains actually develops like a split personality and becomes two different people and stuff like that, and they kind of compare that to themselves and wonder if they're going off the rails and getting out of check. And I thought Taylor did a good job examining all that, but that's 50 years after Spider-Man would have started to expound upon it and analyze that. And I don't think Lee is consciously trying to delve into the depths of Peter Parker's psyche at this point. And because of the Marvel method, where Lee would delegate or give broad notes to Ditko and Kirby and other people, and then they would do the art, and then he would kind of fill in the word bubbles and everything, the captions too, after the fact. I don't know if that came more from Ditko or if that came from Lee, and I don't know which one of them said, Flash gets in trouble and Peter has to rescue him, or Spider-Man has to rescue him, but then who included the detail that Peter should enjoy the idea of Flash maybe not making it. But regardless, it's interesting. And I just like all the detail and all the depth that can be in these stories. And it's a single panel with two thought bubbles, and the Peter on one half and Spider-Man on the other. And I was able to really think about it and talk about it for a long time. And I just think that's I don't know, some of the magic of comics. I'm pretty sure this note is from Lee, but I don't know, maybe this is 22 issues of action. No, 21. If you discard the splash page and cover, there are 20 pages of Spider-Man action in this comic, and I think about 8 of them are all set up for the story, or for the big fight between Doctor Doom and Spider-Man. And it's funny, there's a note saying now this is the longest introduction to a story you've ever had, but believe me, it's going to be, the rest of the issue is going to pack such a wallop that it will be well worth it. And I thought it was kind of cute that was called out, but it didn't feel like a long setup, or at least I didn't struggle through it, because everything I was seeing was just so darn good and so enjoyable that I didn't really have any issue with it. But it is funny to me that I just reviewed Spider-Man Bloodline issue 2. It's the J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, or Bocelli book with Benny Parker in it. Anyway, I just finished that one. I did a review of it last week, and when I read it, it took me, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 minutes at the most, whereas I felt like I was reading this issue for an hour. I was walking around holding my baby and reading, so I wasn't like focusing the whole time, and I was reading. Not that I wasn't focusing, but I couldn't like just read because I had to worry about the logistics of holding him, and I was reading out loud and stuff. But one, reading it out loud was a ton of fun, and two, it does strike me as interesting how dense, or how much more dense the pages all are. Most of them have 6 or 9 panels on them. Very few have less. I don't think there was even a double page spread in this one, but the action was still really fantastic. I'm using the guided view on the app because I'm looking at it digitally, and I don't know if the going through guided view makes me go more slowly through, or if it's just how dense these older comics are or what, but I really love it, and I enjoy being able to luxuriate in each issue that I read, because there's just so much there to enjoy. And what was my larger point? I'm not sure. I guess my point is how enjoyable these old comics are. I really could probably spend like a half hour, an hour talking about them, like going over several pages, even not synopsizing, which I really don't like to synopsize. But hello, plane. There's just so much good stuff that it's really enjoyable. Getting back to the brain versus brawn thing that I started with, there's a great bit of both exhibition of strength and smarts that we get to see from Spider-Man, and the fight between him and Doom really is worth the wait. If you were, slogging through the setup of the story, which like I said, I definitely wasn't. But if you were, the payoff was, or to me, really is incredible. They have an amazing fight. I'm gonna show barely any of it here because you should just read it yourself because it's so darn good. But Spider-Man uses all these different techniques with his webs. He makes a couple shields for himself, a column. He makes these exploding balls of web fluid that he kind of like throws like a mace. He makes a reference to like copying a technique from the Human Torch, and man, it's so good. And Doom has all these traps set up for him. Seeing his appearance here, since I haven't really read any or much Fantastic Four, really makes me want to get into them like as soon as I possibly can, which I'm in control of that, so I guess I can make that whenever I want. But anyway, very entertaining fight. I love how smart Doom is, and like he's definitely smarter than Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's no slouch, when it comes to intellect, and with his spider sense and his strength too, he's pretty much all around like a great person to take on anyone. And it's amazing to me that he basically single-handedly defeats Dr. Doom. He doesn't really defeat Dr. Doom. It's a really close fight. At the very end, Doom almost gets the drop on him, but something happens, and just one last spoiler, even though you should really check this out, Doom flees the fight, but Spider-Man basically beat him. He at least held his own, and that's pretty great because he's one guy versus the whole Fantastic Four who takes on Doom at a time, and I think they like barely defeat him, but again, I don't really know. But it's very interesting that you can have this one guy who matches with 4 people, and then you have one guy and he fights another guy on his own, and the two of them are basically evenly matched. Although there's a really cool line in there about Doom being an older, more experienced fighter or combatant or whatever, and that how much that helps him to almost defeat Spider-Man, because it's true. And I like that they're giving deference to an older gentleman / they're pointing out how a youth would be disadvantaged when going up against an older opponent. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here because I really do want to keep these a lot shorter than they've been. I imagined that these would be 5 to 10 minute reviews, and that 10 minutes might be padding it, but it's pretty easy to just talk about these. But yeah, I think I might go ahead and switch. I was going to do the first full year or first 12 issues of Spider-Man, maybe even go up to 14, because I think that's where a certain green and purple foe comes in. But I kind of think I feel like I'm missing out. Based on this issue, I feel like I'm missing out not checking out the other current Marvel comics. So I think I might go through and just follow, I think it's like Mike's Amazing World of Comics or something. He's got a list. This fellow has assembled a list of all the different publishers, what they published on what dates, and you can go through in history basically and discover all the different, or not discover, but you can see the release schedule for all the stuff, in every month and every year. And I think I'm going to follow that through and check out. I was going to go all the way back to like Namor and the original Human Torch and stuff, but I don't know about that. Kazar, but I don't know. I might sample that And I think I'm going to hold off on that. I think I'm going to go back and start with Fantastic Four from 1962, or was it 61 was the original, the issue number 1 of Fantastic Four. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to go back there and start, and I'll pull in like Astonishing Tales and something suspense, whatever has Hulk and Iron Man and Thor in them, because those guys are, Marvel, early heavy hitters. What about Ant-Man? Anyway, I'm gonna do a little bit of research, but you can expect a shift away from Spidey to including all these other guys, and I'll probably just go to. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Thank you for sticking with me. Check out mjmunoz.com for more of my work. I'm an aspiring author who will gladly accept your financial support through coffee, or you can buy merch from my Redbubble store. Swinging Through Comics can be found on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and mjmunoz.com/stc. Relevant links are in the show notes. If you had a good time, like and share this. Subscribe and ring that bell to catch me next time I'm Swinging Through Comics.